Hi, beautiful human. I'm Zach. That's Dan, and that's Alan Stone.
Yo.
Hello.
So, what's the energy right now? Are you riding off of a high from yesterday's show still, or is today a new day that's encompassed to just what you have in front of you?
If I'm being totally transparent,
Hopefully.
we finished the show last night. I have my wonderful wife and my 2 young children with me on this trip. And so I crawled into bed with my 5-year-old in our hotel at like 1:30 and then was just aggressively assaulted by my 2-year-old at about 5:30. So I'm running, and like I'm running on fumes a little bit, but I'm very stoked to be here. And so the energy is, high from last night. Also the fatherhood fumes. If anybody knows, we got any dads?
No, but I do watch my sister raise my nephew who's 3, and it is admirable to say the least, but also hard. And you do unlock new parts of yourself where you think you've worked hard or like been exhausted and powered through before. Nah.
No.
Like you're tested in a whole new way.
Yeah, as a father, I think I get that question a lot from people. What is it like to be a dad? I have so many friends who don't have kids, aren't choosing kind of not to, I think. And what is it like? And I don't want to give them the cliche answer that I always heard prior to having children, which was like, oh my God, it's the most amazing thing it's incredible, right? It's just all like the rainbow sherbet side of it. I think what it does is it takes your capacity as a human being for every emotion, everything you're capable of, and just expands it by 10, right? So your capacity to love, to give, to sacrifice expands, right? Also your capacity to be like unbelievably annoyed at another creature, right? And those emotions and those capacities feed off each other, right? Your capacity to be overwhelmed is equal to your capacity for patience. So it just
Stretches in opposite directions.
It. You just become, the efficacy of having kids is like, do a 50-miler with Goggins if you want, but try having 2 kids under 5.
There's nothing like it.
It's the most wonderfully crazy thing I've ever done. And I've done a lot of weird stuff.
Does it? I like that they're under the category of weird stuff. Do they make you a better artist?
I think so, because you have to be so much more precise with your time. So prior to having kids, like in my 20s, I had a black belt in wasting my own time. Going out every night, conversations that went nowhere, that need not be. With children, after having my oldest boy, Rudy, I realized how precious time had to become, because not only do I need to have time and space and energy and focus for my family, but in order to provide for my family, I had to whittle out all of the unnecessary things I was utilizing my time for. And so it absolutely has made me a better artist. I don't know if it's made me write better songs, but it's made me write more of them.
Interesting, because you're just more precise.
I'm more focused. Yeah, I'm like, these kids are gonna go to college at some point, and Dad writes songs for a living. I better have some for them to not live in my basement until they're 35. You know.
Is that like this constant one of the many motivating factors that fuels you to push through the exhaustion and really like balance a career with like familyhood? Fatherhood?
It's 2 things. I want to I'm extremely grateful for what I get to do for a living, which is I've been paying my bills with making sound out of my face for like 15 years. It was insane. Like I'm sure you guys might zoom out occasionally and you're like, yo, this is wild what we get to do.
Is this like dose of gratitude attached to your flight to Sweden? Like you had a flight that you were just like, changes your life, right?
That was very much so a seed towards the crossroads that I was at, right? It was in a pretty dark place, had signed to a major label, and that was a dream of mine. I came from like a one stoplight logging town in the Pacific Northwest, and to be on a major label deal with people throwing money at me was a pretty exciting time. And that soon was sort of cascading, and my world was sort of seeming to fold in around me. And on that flight, got in my like, woe is me, dark black hole of selfishness, had this wonderful sensation. I don't know if it happens to y'all on flights. Do you guys get emotional on flights?
No, I just get bored.
You get bored. In the ascent and the descent, for some reason, like I either write my best lyrics that I've ever written, or I cry at like Moana. It's a weird thing. I think it's the pressure, so I don't know. But anyways, on the ascent, had this wonderful, overwhelming sense of gratitude for like all the wonderful things that, sitting on a tin like bird flying 800 miles an hour to Sweden to make music with one of my favorite musicians, the producer I was working with at that time, Tingsek. And it, for sure, that moment, that gift of gratitude really changed my understanding of how much power I personally have in my own trajectory of self-wellness.
Do you make better music when you're healthy? Or some people thrive off of unhealthy?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I've written really great songs on days where I was convinced I wouldn't, because you just and then I've written really terrible songs when I had optimal sleep and exercise and heavy protein breakfast with farm fresh egg. Being a musician or a songwriter, I think, is really a test in non-resistance. This is going to sound maybe weird, but ultimately, as a singer and a musician and a songwriter, I'm just a recycling bin. So I didn't create any of the instruments. I didn't invent the audible frequency to where human beings can hear what frequencies sound good together. I didn't invent chords. I didn't invent language. I'm just recycling stuff that I've heard over time and like putting my own little stamp on it, right? But if you went through my vinyl collection on the ones that were the most worn, you'd go, oh, okay, there's some Stevie Wonder in there. There's some James Taylor, Sly and the Family Stone. Okay, I see what he's doing here. But when people give you praise for what you do, right? Your ego's naturally sort of inclined to go like, we're pretty special. pretty special. How many people are out there? But I'm at my best when I am void of that ego and completely in full understanding of how much of a vessel I am, and relinquish my ego from that space and essentially just receive, just kind of be a conduit. My best songs are written that way. My best shows are performed that way. When I am not in my egoic centric space and more so just doing my best to flow in the presence of gratitude and understanding of like, I really am just a vessel.
And it is true, right? Like, and people have said that so many times on our couch, like, and it is a common thread, right? Like, they are just the vessel between like whatever's beaming down to them, and like what's coming through their, either pen to paper or in a booth or on the stage. But yes, you can park your ego, but do you think an ego is required to be a successful artist?
In some capacity, yeah, because you need some amount of foolish pride to get on a stage and think that you have something to give people that they should pay attention to.
Totally. That's delusional in and of itself. That you're good enough to, like, that you have what it takes at all, even before you actually do, to think that like tens of thousands of people should just pay you and look at you.
Yeah, because it's not a meritocracy. It's not like, if I score more baskets than you at the basketball game, I win the game. I'm better. If you sell more records than me It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you're a better artist. It means you've sold more albums. And then if you break that down, well, yeah, but so-and-so paid for the airplay for those spots that sold the album.
Yeah,
you know
you manipulated parts of the game that allowed you to get a better outcome, but it doesn't make you a better artist or make that song even timeless.
Exactly. There's not now, granted, with the objectivity of art, sometimes there are people who rise above that through time and space, everybody would point to as like, yeah, they're Prince. He's great. Amazing. Stevie Wonder, right?
Joni Mitchell. Yeah, there's a bunch of people. And by the way, I think some of the common threads is like they were the first. In a lot of cases, some of them were the first or one of the first that like the interpretations of what came before them was so profound in themselves that it would then lay a foundation for others to follow, right?
Yep.
Like I can make the case that like you don't have Lana Del Rey if you don't have Joni Mitchell, right? Like,
of course.
It's just like it doesn't exist.
Of course, and prior to Joni Mitchell, like Joni Mitchell was a part of what would feel like adolescence of mass recorded music.
Yes.
So she's in this like upswing of, hey, we found a way to make mass produced albums. And so now the Beatles, of course, they're gigantic because prior to that, there wasn't a way to get recorded albums out that much.
Dude, it is wild. Keep going. Sorry.
No, I'm thinking as I'm speaking. I'm like that doesn't seem to line up. I'm not very versed in the historic facts of recorded songs.
No, I think it's really I think elements of it do line up. I think like it was like very much a time where like popular music was like consumption of music was more mainstream than ever. Like there's many mediums to consume music, obviously, but also the type of music that like somebody like Joni Mitchell was doing at the time was very unique, right? Like it was like the lyrical depth, et cetera, like, you know, you could say like would create sad girl pop, you know?
Sure. Yep.
By the way, we're here to talk music, but I do want to talk more life with you because having an ego is required to becoming somewhat of a successful artist. Like you have to give a shit about yourself in order for someone else to care about you.
It's a weird balance, ego versus void of ego. Because I think both are necessary. You're right.
But you got to park it sometimes.
You have to. And to know when to park it, right? Know when to like have the dog on the leash or when to have the dog can go run the trail, you know?
Do you have an ego in the studio?
So I try not to have an ego in the studio because I think that I had a really wonderful hang with a producer named Anderson East, and he's a solo artist as well as a producer. And we wrote some songs together in Nashville, and then I brought my band in, and we were going to cut the tracks. And it's like, do you want to send the band the songs before they show up so they kind of know the material? He's like, hell no. No way. I'm like, with it. And he said, you don't want to push God out of the room. Like the preparation for a session day was the 20 years leading into you getting the call to be the session drummer or the guitar player. And what tends to happen, and I do this all the time, is the ego gets in the way and it's like, oh, well, I can play God and I can put my little, the run or the on the thing, and it's going to really send it. That's your ego telling you, like, you're special enough to take this thing to where it needs to go. In reality, there's so much God, luck, chance that will happen for a song to become timeless, to become massive, to do what you want it to do when you're in that space in the studio and your ego's telling you, hey, check out this lift, you know? So we brought in the band. It was the kind of the coolest way I've worked ever. And we let the band listen to the song 3 times. And we're like, okay, go get in the booth. And we cut it all live. And to this day, it's my favorite recordings we've done because the band had to, because they weren't like over prepared, had to listen to each other a specific type of way. I had to listen a certain way. And there's no extra. there's no fat on the meat. Like all the fat has been carved off the recordings because there wasn't time to over prepare and let your ego get in there and go, you know what would be sick is if we did, you know?
It's true though. Like them just having like a small amount of time with it before they choose to throw it out there really allows them to, like, I don't know, like you can't do anything extra. You can't steal the attention from the sanctity of the song.
Totally.
It's really cool. So are you using live instruments in the room while you're writing these things, or live instruments come in like the second part of this process?
I always write on I don't always write on a live instrument. I prefer to write on a guitar. That's kind of like my comfort zone for writing music. I have done it many different ways. You come in and make a beat with the producer and then record on top of that. I've done that before. That's really fun. But you know, I grew to love music in my dad's church, and the love for that was spawned through communal exertion of song, right? The congregation singing, and I love when people lift their voice or utilize their bodies to make sound.
You led worship?
I led worship, sure. Yeah. I mean, that's where I first started picking and grinning was I think my dad started having me lead worship when I was 12 or 13 in our church. And
you can learn a lot from performing in those settings.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I'm so grateful for it. I still to this day, the folk I meet on the road, I know who grew up in the church playing.
You can tell.
I could tell. I could just tell. There's just something. Well, I think I can tell. I'm sure I would get it wrong occasionally, but there's just something about the feeling, right? Because a good amount of folk go the normal route, which is piano lessons, potentially as a young kid, and then they'll get into band in school, middle school, whatever, and then be very proficient players, of course. Whereas I'm not a proficient player at all. I've had to learn that along the way, but I'm guided by feel. I'm guided by emotion in my music, and I feel I have a sense for that when I meet people who kind of came up that same way.
What's your relationship with religion now? Because it's changed over the years, and even in the conversation, you referred to as luck or God, universe, and you studied the Bible, right? At a certain point.
Sure. Yeah, I went to Bible college. I thought I was going to be a music pastor, maybe, and then in Bible college learned things that I wish I would have learned growing up. It would have made the realization.
Probably would have ended up in Bible college.
Well, I may have, because it would have just been a slower drip, right? When I learned it in Bible college, it was like, wait, what? Hold up.
So what'd you learn exactly that took you for a loop?
Just, I mean, primarily the history of the Bible and its conception, and how it came to be, how the specific authors that were given credence over books were given the authority to utilize those essentially letters towards, leading what is the new version of the Judaic church.
Can you give us a brief history? Who are they? What's their deal?
Oh, I wouldn't be able to do it now. That was 15 years ago. But, essentially, right, Judaism is the Old Testament, right? And the Christian church, Christ came to hey, let's shake things up a little bit. The Judaic church, as well as the Roman Catholics, were not stoked about that. He had quite a few followers in that time, and so they got rid of him, right? Post him passing away, this is roughly 800 years after he is killed by the Romans, the underground Christian church, right, starts compiling letters or testaments, essentially. The Gospels, the first 4 books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, those are the Gospels, right? Those are testaments from, I think it's still a little bit gray, but direct apostles of Christ, right? So these are direct stories coming from people who had contact with Christ, but they were written down and sort of passed around for like hundreds of years before they were actually put into some form of what we now see as the Bible. And then the rest of the New Testament is essentially letters from higher ups in, the Christian organization on how to lead your church, what to do, what not to do. And I wouldn't be able to tell you the day, but essentially at one point, this creed of human beings, spiritual leaders, went and decided at one point, these are the books we're going to put in the New Testament, and then we're going to leave these ones out. These ones, they've been being tossed around sort of the Northern Africa portion of the world, where these ones we're going to stay away from, these ones we're going to utilize. And as a kid growing up, right, I'm like, the whole entire thing is God breathed. This is God said it, and it was somehow, right? And then later on, you're like, wait a second, these are just like a bunch of guys in potato sacks, right? Haven't bathed, every 3 months, just writing stuff down. And then it gets, passed down through like 15 different languages, comes to me, but then I'm supposed to believe that like Joseph Smith and the Mormon church, they got it wrong. You can't revise what essentially they did to the Judaic scripture. Like, wait a second here. Like, isn't that a little bit off?
They're all cut from the same cloth, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think ultimately to me, where I land now with religion, per your original question, is I don't know. I don't know, man. I do know that the reflections and the aspects of the community I was raised in that seem to work best to me or for me in my life are true in every major spiritual belief.
Well, when you really look into the hood, a lot of the religions are very similar from one another.
Seems like they all are sort of operating from the same space a little bit.
Totally. And then if you want to even look even deeper, religion and science is very in sync too, and people don't fully understand it, right? Like, let's go down to the basic idea of prayer. That's energy. Praying with a group is collective energy.
Yep.
That is scientifically proven to work. Like, the idea of what you put out is what you will eventually get back. That is true.
So yeah, I would even dare to say that religion, specifically old religion, is just old science. We have better tools nowadays towards measuring the things that they were attempting to try and explain thousands of years ago. It's just old science. The bugger that I come across, right, is that old science is very slow to change its understanding of new science. And so there's this bash between traditions that are still really wonderful. If you go to the majority of religious communities, there's wonderful families, there's nuclear families, there's love in a lot of situations. Of course, there's a few things they're missing here, right? But the majority of my experience growing up in my home was amazing. Couldn't have asked for it better. But the bugger is the old science and the new science are like, hey, no way.
Yeah, they conflict.
You get the right? And if there was more of an understanding that they're the same thing, just with different tools and tool sets.
But also, old things have to evolve.
Of course. And new things have to pay homage to
it's true.
The old, I think.
Religion is interesting.
Humans are interesting.
Totally.
We're crazy.
Yeah, well, we need answers to questions, and I think religion historically answers a lot of questions. Also, people need guidance.
Totally. Fills a lot of gaps, man. It fills a lot of gaps in humans' lives.
Boom. That you summed it up so beautifully. Like, every gap a human being has, it really could potentially be filled by religion, depending on how they choose to accept it.
Filled by belief, essentially, really. It's like belief in something, right? I've heard it said really well a couple of times. It's like, it appears as though whether something is real or not, the belief in the thing is potent and worthwhile.
Your song Satisfaction came out like 12 years ago. Isn't that written about corporate religion? Or
Sure.
Where were you when you wrote that song? What were you?
I think I was coming straight out of. So yeah, I was out of Bible college, and the bugger was like, I dropped out of Bible college and was like, I'm gonna leave and I moved to Seattle. It was kind of where I cut my teeth. I had some friends over there that had like a couch I could stay on for a couple years, I think. And
An underrated music city.
Seattle's amazing, man.
It is incredible.
It's a great city for music, and the community of musicians in Seattle. I've been out of that community for quite a while now, but it's God, I've received so much support and love from that community, and there was some real proper bands that came out of that scene when I was coming up in what would have been 2010. It was like Macklemore, Head in the Heart, myself. Who else popped out of there? I don't know. Especially, it's just a couple hours from where I grew up, and the capacity for that city to like launch people is
Crazy.
pretty amazing.
But like now, like everybody goes, I got to go to LA. But Seattle, like historically, just has produced some of the greatest musicians. It's true.
There's some great music that comes out of Seattle. That is for sure.
Is Nirvana?
Nirvana, Foo Fighters, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix.
No, it's like some of the greatest, most prolific radio stations ever,
Mix-a-Lot?
too.
So Mix-a-Lot.
Damn.
Ray Charles was there for many years. Kenny G.
Wow.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, the sax guy. Icon.
Icon.
By the way, you are here talking about Mystery. It's an EP.
Yeah.
You can listen to it. It's all on Amazon Music. Can we talk about like Already There? I was running 100 on empty, without no brakes. Every stone that was thrown was a rock into this hard place. Where are you? I mean, are you writing that from a place you're at or from a place you've been?
Place I've been. My journey as human spiritual being, I always equate to this analogy of, I have friends be like, dude, how's your heart? How you doing? You know, like really deeply caring people, and I always feel like I'm in a pool that is about 3 inches deeper than I am tall, and I've got 2 dumbbells, and I go to the bottom of the pool, and I push off the bottom of the pool, and I get to and I get a deep breath. This is like whatever, spiritual awareness, like centeredness, and then I go right back down to the pool, right? So those lyrics are places that I experience all the time, you know, going in and out of doubt and insecurity, and then, you know, finding centeredness. If you go on to that chorus, it's speaking about, you know, heaven is already there and it's inside me.
Yeah, it's
right?
for my meaning.
So it's not a place I don't go to still, but it's an understanding of knowing how to free myself of that space when I find myself locked in it.
Do you remember the moment where you realized like religion wasn't like what was external or the corporate religion, but it was the belief that's inside of you or what's inside of you?
It's been a constant growth in my life, but I think my wife is incredible and very well read and very patient with me. And she turned me onto this cat, Eckhart Tolle, who has this really great book called The Power of Now. And it would have been right around the same time that I was on that flight to Sweden and had this like overwhelming feeling of gratitude. So I was in a kind of a really dark place and introduced to that book. And yes, the way that he speaks about presence being the salvation that all major corporate religions speak about, really turned my perspective on everything, the way I was raised, the issues that a good amount of corporate, whatever, mass monolith church beliefs sort of fall into. It changed diving into that, and it's been a growth since, right? That was like, I call them downloads. You know, you get like a big download, you're like, whoa. Been getting a really great download recently in me and my wife's relationship. And everything seems to kind of be informed or reflected from those downloads moving forward, and that was a really big one. That we are. I almost wonder if that's kind of what Christ was speaking about, right? Like, he said, "I am God. I am God," and I wonder if what he was attempting to try and describe was like, I have the capacity and power to fix my lens any way that I would like towards the kingdom of heaven and towards the betterment of my personal spiritual space. Not, hey guys, I'm God, you know.
Yeah, follow me.
Follow me, I'm God.
Hey,
I have been given the ability to own presence and understand that heaven's gates are inside of my being and inside of my capacity to find in way better words than I just described.
Yeah. By the way, like that's the
way more poetic.
That's the cool, like in my opinion, like kind of hippie version of what I think religion is and should be, right? Like this idea that God's within all of us. It's within you. It's eternal salvation is doing whatever the fuck you want to do. It exists within.
Exactly.
It's not following someone or putting money in a basket every Sunday.
Right. Ultimately, you're only going to find it if you find it within.
Let's talk about Strong. That's my favorite song on the
Okay,
EP.
nice, cool. Yeah.
Good transition.
I don't know what to go with that one.
Oh, it's good.
I'm glad you like that one. Man.
Yeah, and I'm not someone who understands lyrics very well. I just listen to how the song sounds.
Sweet.
And that song sounds great to me.
Dope, dude. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, so what are you saying in that song that I'm not getting?
It's about, my wife and I's relationship. We got 2 kids. We've been together 10 years. We met, she's from Australia, from Melbourne, Australia, and we met when I was on tour there in 2013, and we fell in love, and both of us were like, this is, if you look at this on paper, this is the hardest relationship to make work. Mm-hmm. You live in Australia. I am on the road 7 months a year, and we're gonna try and make this thing work, and we did, and we have 2 beautiful kids, and we're happy. And through much growth and maturity and work, but that song is really just about giving praise for the strength of our love and gratitude, really.
How do you make that work?
Well, you got to find, like, can I swear on this? So you got to find a badass human. Like truly a badass human who is ready to get in the batter's box and take some cuts. And that's key. Mm-hmm. And you also have to be willing and open to taking a deep look at yourself. Like truly looking at yourself from a 10,000 foot view and understanding what characteristics you potentially have just put in every pocket of your pea coat that are informing the way you interact with other people, specifically your romantic partners. Because you guys married or you got ladies?
I'm in a relationship.
Your relationship?
Also from Australia.
No way.
Yeah, he's from Adelaide.
What a great town. Have you been?
Yeah, good times. It's great. I love Australia. I would totally fuck off there tomorrow.
Dude, I so badly want to, but it's so far away.
It is far, but it's so nice. The price is a lot cheaper. The quality of living, like, dude, the produce, the food, the chicken. I mean, everything is of a higher quality.
The jokes, dude, the funniest people I ever meet are Aussies.
They're great people.
They're great people. My wife, backstage at the show, yeah, they're in town. My in-laws flew in yesterday, and LA is rife with Aussies. They're everywhere.
Because it's really
And
the
they find each
closest-
other.
Yeah, every time. But it's the closest point in America to Australia, pretty much. It's like
Very much so. I mean, you could do San Francisco. They got directs.
yeah,
But there's not as much Aussies in San Fran as there in.
they love LA. They love pop culture.
They love pop culture, love movies. Some of the best art currently out, actors, movies, music is all Aussie born.
I do wish they it's a very interesting world. Like I wish there was more Australian musicians. Like they could have a stronger cultural export, but that's a conversation for another day.
Well, they got some pretty dope musicians.
Yes.
You know about Matt Corby?
No.
Yeah.
Educate
You know
me.
about Parcels?
Yeah, I do. Triple J. Like a lot of these are like Triple J type.
They're Triple J. Yeah, they got a good support system over there. The bugger about Australia is there's not enough people in Australia for Australian artists to make enough of a living to then catapult them over to other spaces.
Yeah, very few can be Guy Sebastian. But like it's true. Like there's 28 million people in the entire country, and the country's bigger than America, right? And so it's like saying take LA metro area and maybe half of the OC and just put them on an entire fucking continent that I think is like almost double the size of America.
Yep.
Think about it.
Yeah.
They're
Only
so
like
spread out.
10% of it is inhabitable too.
Yes, and you know everybody. Like
everybody.
I'm convinced that like they all know each other. It's weird.
Absolutely. Yeah. But yesterday, my green room was 80% Aussies.
Great.
It was like, oh fucking my, It was the best, dude. I was like, yes. It's about time. It's about time we're talking about fucking right instead of Donald Trump and Kamala, man. Like, let's get some giggles happening back here. There's too much American serious talk.
That's so funny. Because I know it. I live it. That's great. Can we talk about sweet little rainbows? What do you mean by a sweet little rainbow?
Yeah, man, it's just giving thanks for just another exercise of gratitude, right? Like Mother Nature, the thing. I have 2 healthy children. You know how insane that is,
That's a blessing.
dude. Like I'm well. There's days where a studied doctor might tell me otherwise, but I'm pretty healthy. Like just that alone, like your body has knowledge of when to separate the blood and the oxygen, just like somewhere.
So
just
is that a sweet little rainbow?
No, but really sweet little rainbows. If you look at the lyrics, it's okay. This is maybe just too. Tell me to shut up if it's stupid, because it potentially is. But like we're floating on a ball of water in the middle of eternity, and we can sit and have a conversation with words we didn't invent. And I'm like, we're buddies now. Kind of.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you guys are buddies.
Totally.
And we can have an exchange of emotion. This thing that you cannot touch, you cannot put in a bottle, but we can feel it. It's real. And then we just inherited this. We just inherited this thing that,
Right. It was
that
all
we
acquired.
can now utilize if we fix our lens in the right way towards the betterment of our life day to day. How sick is that?
That is crazy.
How sick is that?
That's
And
true.
we have the capacity to like horse blinder ourselves towards all the positivity in the world if we want to.
Yeah,
and
harder-
we can still survive,
True.
right? It's not like, yeah, but what about dysentery? No, bro, it's 2024 and we were born in America. Are you shitting me? The lottery
No, we've already won.
We
You're
already
right.
won.
You're right. You're right. And I don't think anyone's ever been on our show and said dysentery ever. I don't think Dan knows what dysentery
No, that
is.
one went over my head.
And to be straight, I don't.
You can give a real definition, but it's like an illness that results in diarrhea.
I think it's when water is not properly purified. Like
Yeah, you get sick.
You get sick. If you're drinking puddles, look out for dis.
Oh, it's an infection that causes bloody diarrhea.
Yeah, there we go.
No, that was what my doctor said.
But you are correct to a certain degree. Like, we've won the lottery.
We've won the lottery. Every day we wake up.
It is like there's a lot of factors at play all the time, right? Like, you're born, what your zip code is, what's going on in your life. I mean, there's a bunch of factors.
Of course.
Bunch of variables that, like, over time can, like, really be more controlled and, like, be focused to ensure success. And you are correct. Like, if we want, we can put on blinders and only consume the positive. Does that give us the most balanced perspective and way of life? Probably not.
No.
And I think it's harder to keep those blinders on tight today because the amount of information is extreme, and where and how it's feeding our fucking brain and eyes and ears and all of it, dude, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, you have to legitimately be a sorcerer to manage to keep all of the negativity at bay that we have the ability to dive into nowadays.
And you can consume and put it into a box, but, like, God, can you do it fast enough?
Yeah, who knows? But I think one of the best tools you can do is right. So in the age of information, we have the ability and we have God in our pocket. God is here and he's in our pocket. The information God is in our pocket, and at any moment's notice, we can fulfill any desire of our emotional tendency with this, right? It almost makes it more important to have the understanding of choice to not allow the fast food information garbage into our system, because we have the ability to do it. Rewind back to the 70s and you had New York Times, you had, like, local newspaper, the amount of information, they give 4 channels, 5, right? You didn't really have a choice. You got your neighbors, you got your local neighborhood papers. Other than that, nowadays it's like you actually have to stand on a position of gratitude and go, look, yeah, everything can be crazy if I want it to be, but what I'm going to choose in this moment is to move forward as best possible with an emotional state of gratitude for the things in my life that I'm thankful for. I think that's what Sweet Little Rainbows is really about, is understanding how lucky personally I am. Now, I don't never want to downplay anybody's situation or trauma because I was born lucky, like very lucky, in a nuclear family with love and communication and 2 parents that loved each other. That's not everybody else's experience. But what I do know in my own personal life is that when I turn on my woe is me hat and I can turn the volume up to 10, I can get there quick. But when I throw on my gratitude hat and I turn that volume up to 10, it's so much better.
Is this attached to the mystery that is this EP? Like, what is the mystery?
So when we were attempting to put together the name of the album, we listened to all the songs and we were like, what's the through line, right? I didn't write this EP as a concept album. I went in the studio and attempted to be present in the space that I was writing in, and these songs came out: Sweet Little Rainbows, Mystery with PJ Morton, and so it felt very, very appropriate to name it Mystery, because the through line is mysterious. When you listen through all the songs, some are about love, some are about, there's one, my favorite track on the record is called Ego Motions.
I was just going to bring it up. So good. Very self-reflective.
Yeah, it's like that song connected to Sweet Little Rainbows is like, what? There's not a trail that goes there. And so, yeah, I mean, naming an album is interesting, right? Because you're like, unless it's a concept album and you start at the beginning of the writing process, like this is the name of the album and everything needs to fit underneath that concept, then it can be a little tricky. And it felt like, well, my favorite song on the album is Mystery, and the through line of all the tunes feels mysterious. We don't really know what it's about. So that's where it landed.
By the way, Ego Motions is really great.
Thank you, man.
Hard record to put out or a hard record to write or easy?
No, man. It was I wrote that song and recorded it in my in-laws' basement in Australia. My wife and we hadn't had our second child yet, but this was 2021, height of COVID.
Wow.
So my wife and I flew to Melbourne from LAX, and we quarantined in a hotel room for 2 weeks. That was when that was happening. It's funny, on our flight over here, we were talking about it, like, babe, dude, you remember that? We were like stuck in a hotel. It's like me, you, and Rudy for 2 weeks. What did we do? And yeah, I was in my basement, and man, I don't know if you guys remember the tension that was happening like in America in 2021. And
Oh, yeah, it was intense. But Australia was really different because they were like doing statewide lockdowns. So you couldn't even drive from like state to state, and the states hold the major cities. So it was really interesting. So even if you fulfilled your 2 week lockdown period, you couldn't get into like, depending on where you were going, you couldn't get into like Queensland or
right.
Yeah,
you would have
New
to
South
go
Wales.
and lock down in that state.
Yes.
Yeah, luckily my in-laws have a beautiful spot, ton of space, and yeah, I don't know, that song just kind of came to me highlighting my own perspective on how I deal with ideas, and even more so like ideas that I believe to be true in conversation. And ultimately, I think how humans communicate ideas, right? We sort of like attach our ego to ideas. And if I can't reflect on this idea because it's a part of my being, it's part of my identity. So it's really at times hard to shape and change our perspectives on politics or religion or the nuclear family or sexuality, because our identity is connected to like what essentially is an idea. And I noticed that in my own personal experience, that I was doing that, and that's truly what Ego Motion's about. Back and forth, I spit my poison. It's funny, I can't recite my lyrics unless I'm singing them. But yeah, I love that one. And it's the first song I've ever produced myself.
Really?
And released. Yeah, so it was me and my keyboard, one of my best friends, Steve Swatkins.
There's live instruments on every song, right?
Those are programmed drums.
Really?
That one, yeah, that's just me.
You can't tell.
There's some pretty incredible tools that you can, use in digital DAWs nowadays that give you the swing and allow you to make it feel as human as possible. That's what I when we do live shows, it is live. We don't use track. I'm adamant about not having any sound coming out of the speakers that's not being created in real time. That's like very kind of the peak of my pyramid of sacredness of music is like, if you're gonna put on a live show, put on a live show. Totally. Like some people don't, and they do it very well, but so I want my records to sound live. I want my records to, because in the studio we don't always have a drummer at our disposal, but I always do my best to make sure it feels like it's mostly human, if that makes sense.
By the way, you can listen to this Mostly Human EP. It's waiting for you. It's called Mystery. It's on Amazon Music, plus all of Alan Stone's catalog is there for you. Go. Link below. What are you thinking?
Why did you want to revisit some of your biggest songs or some of your songs for the Apart album?
Two reasons. I grew up, I kind of cut my teeth playing just me and a guitar in coffee shops and frat parties, and I would travel around in a 87 LeSabre and play any gig I could, and I couldn't afford a band. And so really learned how to perform in front of an audience, just me and a guitar, really. And two things happened. One, like the pandemic happened, and so putting together recording sessions with a bunch of people was impossible. So like, okay, so we can't make like records the way I want to make them. And I can't tour the record because obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore I can't make a living off of the record, because that's how we make our living as musicians nowadays. It's like there's a little bit of, revenue stream from album sales, but at my size, I make the majority of my stake in ticket sales and touring. And so it made sense on a business scale as well to go revisit all of these songs that my fan base really loves, sort of open up the creative space to see how do these songs feel and live with just me and a guitar in a room, because that's all I can do right now. And then I could pull this tour off because
it could just be you.
Well, all tours during that day, that time, right? You'd get your whole squad together. You'd get 12 people on a bus traveling all around the United States. And if one of those people got COVID,
Whole thing's off.
whole thing's done.
Oh, yeah.
And tours are like, the margins are so tight. You miss 2 shows and you're like, great, we're belly up now. God, it was amazing. We opened up for Dave Matthews at the Gorge. It was like one of our first full band shows out of COVID. And Carter Buford, the drummer, as well as Stefan Lassard, the bass player, tested positive. This is when they're testing you every day to get backstage. You got to do the swab, and it was so amazing. There's 45,000 people out there, right? Carter's sick, can't come near stage. Stefan's got COVID, can't come near stage. The band completely rearranged themselves. The buddy, the keyboard player, hops on the drums.
Holy shit.
Oh, what's his name? The bass player for the opening band, the first of 3, Dumpsta Funk, sat in and played bass. And this is Labor Day weekend at the Gorge Amphitheater in Washington State, which is the biggest venue in Washington State where I come from. Dave and his band have been selling out 3 days in a row of Labor Day.
It's crazy.
For 35 years.
Literally.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, what?
It's just nonstop with them.
It's insanity.
incredible.
And they could have been like, guys, sorry. We gotta, No, they just completely went. They're like, we're just gonna, this is how amazing they were. But anyways, the point was that was what we were living through. And so doing the album like that, it gave an audience the songs in a new light that I think they really enjoyed. It allowed me to make the record, and it allowed me to cover my bases in the attempt that okay, I'm going to put out a full band record, and then we're going to go on tour, and I know somebody's going to get sick. We're going to have to cancel the whole tour. So then I'm going to be out, and broke from it. So it allowed me to go out and tour it as well. And funny enough, it was me and 2 background singers. That was our tour for the Apart record. And the first show, the background singer
Got COVID?
got COVID.
No way.
But fail safe, still able to do the show.
Yeah.
Because I'm
just you.
touring an acoustic record. I flew by myself to Toronto. I played the show, and it was fine. So it did work out. Looking back on it, I was like, oh, that's pretty smart that we did it that way.
Yeah, really smart. And do you have any belief in the idea that a really good song is good no matter how it's performed?
Oh,
Whether
yeah.
that be with a bunch of live instruments or crazy production or just a guitar?
Yes, absolutely. I think a song is really good if you can strip it down to one instrument and one voice.
And it's great.
And yeah, a really good song, Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper, is going to be good any way you perform it. it's just a great song. Timeless, right? You were talking about timeless earlier. So yeah, I believe that for sure.
I don't really believe in genres very much, but how would you describe the genre that you live in?
Yeah, genres are tough for me as well, but I typically get described as a soul singer.
Soul funk? Soul funk?
Soul, funk, R&B,
No.
in that vein, yeah.
Whatever it is, it's fucking awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're exceptionally gifted.
You're very kind.
Well, just being honest. Listen to the EP. It's waiting for you. It's called Mystery. Link below. What are you thinking over there?
How was your experience on American Idol? Did you enjoy that?
It was cool. Yeah, I got to bring my dad, and I'm totally having a brain fart.
Wait, you were on American Idol?
Well, I wasn't on it. I was a mentor.
Oh, yeah.
So
But you were on the American Song Contest.
I was on the American Song Contest.
Yeah,
Correct. That was a really cool experience as well. Almost got the win for Washington State, but runner up on it.
I feel like that's something you don't want to win.
No, I did.
You want to be the runner-up. You did. Okay.
I did. No, I didn't want to. I didn't think. When they told me who was like, Jewel was representing Alaska and Michael Bolton was representing Connecticut, and
that's crazy.
Like one of the Marley brothers was representing some. Like I was like, there's no way I'm making it past one episode, so I'll just get some TV time and maybe some cool outfits, and this will be great. And then I was like, it was down to me and this other artist, and yeah, she won, which was awesome. She was great. But yeah,
that's nuts.
American Idol was amazing. It was super fun. Really humbling to be considered a mentor.
Yeah.
To like singers who can all sing circles around me. Like the talent on that show, specifically that. So I did it 2 years. I think I did it back in 2019, and then I recently did it like 22 or 23. The talent pool on the last one the most recently, the one that I did, I was like, I can't tell you guys, I can't give you any advice. You're amazing. Every one of you is unbelievable at singing. Now, granted, you're singing, it's karaoke essentially. So you don't know if you can write a song, which is, that's the real thing, right? Even our biggest, Bob Dylan, Stevie Wonder, like our icons of icons, were originally cover artists, right? They put out a couple cover songs, and even today too. Now, like you look at the trend of people doing covers on the socials.
We got the Bob Marley cover.
Got the Bob Marley cover. Yep.
People have been doing covers forever, and then people have made careers off of doing Michael Bolton, Madcon, Monoskin. I mean, the list is like really long. That dude from 2020, the Corinne Bailey Ray guy, then the Surf Mesa guy, like dude, covers on covers on covers. Some people parlay it into more though.
Totally.
Most
well, it seems almost though that you have to start out that way, in order to get attention. But then, can you write a song? That's the artists who are capable of turning over that page and writing a song. So it's a little different with the American Idol spot, but it was so much fun. The last night we somehow weaseled our way into a dinner with, it was me, my manager Brittany and Bruce, and then Luke Bryan, Katy Perry, and Lionel Richie. They're sort of all in this restaurant, separate tables, right? But then Lionel just starts holding court about, Paul McCartney and I were like story. I mean, if you think about Lionel, he's been at every stage of American pop music. He's been there. He's been around. So that was really special. Super cool. I don't know how we got ourselves in there. Looking around like, what the hell are we doing? Orlando Bloom was over here. What am I doing here?
I don't know, man. You are the company you keep,
Well, I just felt like lucked out there. That was a fun one.
What's your greatest strength as an artist?
Probably durability.
Interesting. How so? How would you apply that in?
Well, I travel a lot. I've been on the road since 2009.
And you're like, the reason behind you needing to go on the road as much as you did was really interesting to me. I didn't know that like one of the original Fuel like design like you had to pay off a debt to a manager that essentially scammed you,
Sure. Yeah.
right? Mm-hmm. I mean, $400,000.
Yep.
I don't even like understand how that even happens.
Well, it happens when there's an individual who is very aware of legal wordings that place young, dumb,
In vulnerable positions.
and vulnerable people in positions that later on can cause them harm. But nobody is now. Granted, this gentleman, I don't envy his position in life at all. That must be a very deeply dark place for a human being to be in, to do that to a young. I was 23 at the time, and also like force them to pay that back, right?
Well, that's where it it's one thing to like sign something that implies this could happen, but then to enforce it.
To enforce it is different, and to enforce it in that degree as well, right? Like, at the time, it's like you see the books.
Yeah, there's no way you're making that much money.
You see the books, bro. Like to land on a position that is, I think, a reasonable, fair trade in our relationship up to this point. I mean, we were working together for 6 months. It was like,
What?
yeah, it was not like, hey, we're 10 years in.
Yeah, you owe me. You sunset clause me.
I can get that. I can get like, hey, let's meet in the middle. But this was not a meet in the middle situation. This was I have a lot of resources and you don't. And if you don't do what I want, then I'm going to continue to pummel you with the monetary resources that I have, because I have deep pockets and you don't.
By the way, deep pockets courtesy of taking advantage of people in vulnerable positions.
Well,
Crazy.
I will not deny that this human being's capability of seeing talent is impeccable, because I could name off some of the artists that he was involved with breaking, and you'd go, damn, okay. However, regardless of your ability to see talent, your inability to see the human is really going to put you in a place that is dark, I think, personally. And regardless, yes. So back to your
serves as a blessing to you, kind of, because it isn't. I mean, you have to pay back a huge amount of money. We're in a position where you don't have that amount of money coming in at all. But now you have to work at a rate that you've never worked before.
True. And
tour at a rate that you've never toured before. Essentially, all to pay back some guy that you don't even talk to. Exactly.
Well, two things. Yes, in hindsight, looking back, it's like, wow, there's an amount of gratefulness for this terrible situation I found myself in. Why? Because I had to go pound the pavement for 10 years. And through my desire to show up every single night and give the best show I possibly can to make sure that my voice is situated and
that's durable
at the capacity I know I can, forcing myself to do that through this unfortunate situation led me to a place where now, I'm 37. I go out and tour 7 months a year. And I think I've only had to cancel 1 show, 2 shows maybe.
That's crazy.
In that time frame,
dude,
of close to 15 years of touring.
You just don't become durable without that.
True.
So.
True, yeah.
And also, experiencing that pretty early on in one's career sets you up to kind of take on anything that could be next.
Yeah, I've
in that moment you're like, well, bring it on.
Bring it on.
Seriously.
Truly, yeah.
Wait, so wondering, what was it like going from Capitol Records to Dave Matthews record label?
Well, I was originally at ATO before I went to Capitol.
Okay, so was it ATO upstreaming to Capitol, or was it just ATO?
So I made a record by myself.
Okay.
And I put out a video on YouTube of of performance that I did that, you know, it says on the video live from my mom's living room. It wasn't, but, and that video took off.
Goes viral.
It goes viral. And we start selling a lot of this record that I've just like put on Apple Music. You know?
Talking about Alan Stone? Like the self-titled?
The self-titled Brown album, yeah. And then ATO licenses it, and we take that record. You know, that was, man, 3 years of madness, you know, playing everywhere in the world, playing on stages I didn't belong on, meeting my idols kind of thing. But it was just a one deal license agreement. And then, you know, sure enough, towards the end of that cycle, all the majors come chirping. And yeah, I was offered a check that was like, wow, really? Okay. And signed with Capitol. And I was very precise with why I signed with Capitol. You know, I'd heard all the horror stories about people going to majors and getting shelved, and the musical chairs that happens within the executives of major labels, and so I made sure, I was like, okay, well, make sure that who we sign to, you know, they're on like a long deal, like long enough deal, right? And they just signed like what I was told was a 5-year deal, and we signed, and you know, sure enough, right after I finished like mixing my sophomore record, they took off to a different label, and you know, new person took over, wanted me to like go back in. Wasn't really connected to the project, and so naturally they're gonna go, hey, I want to put my fingerprint on it. There was nothing malicious at all, but just I wasn't equipped as like a 25-year-old sensitive artist to deal with that, and so. So kind of luckily, Capitol dropped me and let me go to ATO. ATO re-released that same record with some like extra bonus. I probably wrote 70 songs for that record. It's called Radius. And ATO's been awesome. They've always been a great partner to me. They're music fans. They put out really great records. I think they're really precious about the music that comes out on their label, and their capability for upstream, you know, in case something catches fire, is amazing. But they start with reasonable, what's the right term? Their record budgets are reasonable, and so I've recouped every record I've ever made with them.
That's amazing.
You know, within a couple years. The deals have always been very reasonable, and I know everybody personally at the label really well. They're a phone call away. You know, not a good amount of major labels. I don't. At least
you don't know them, and then there's not going to be shuffling going on. And then at the end of the day, like breaking news, like Dave Matthews will always be around.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure
crazy?
how much. I know Dave started. I don't know how much he is involved nowadays, but
who runs it?
So I believe, I don't want to speak out of pocket, but who I've worked with for literally since the Brown album is this guy named John Salter.
That's crazy.
He's still there.
But that alone is enough of a testament
insane
to hang around and work with them.
It is. It's the same as I work with John Salter, Paul Dryden. There's other people at the label, radio folk who are connected to Red Light Management who I work with, but it's been the same folk since I was like 22 years old. I mean, at the show last night, radio promoters are there that I knew when at that Brown album, 23, they'd like take me in their Hyundai to radio stations and I'd play a song. And it's like, I got my 2 kids running around. They're like, this is insanity that, you know, we've known each other this long. So it's a very much so feels like a family affair. And I like making records like that. I enjoy making records the way that ATO has allowed me to make records.
Well, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
You can listen to Mystery, by the way. It's waiting for you. Link below. It's on Amazon Music. You say Hyundai like an Australian person.
Hyundai.
Nobody in America is saying Hyundai, but they say Hyundai in
Sure.
Australia, or as people down there call it, Australasia.
Yeah.
It's a region of the world, bro. Educate yourself.
The last question I have is this proposal at your show last night.
Yo.
Was that a first?
Love.
No, it happens every show.
Does it really?
Almost.
Oh, damn.
What was our last show we did? So we did LA last night, and then it would have been not Santa Fe. Where did we play after Santa Fe? We went to, oh, I'm blanking. I'm so sorry. We've been on tour since June, so it's all kind of
That's crazy.
melds together.
Do people tell you, or do they just do it?
So it used to go, people would like contact me and say, hey, I want to propose. Can I come on stage during, I have a song called Consider Me that I wrote for my wife before we got wed. And I have done that a few times. And then a couple times it was, at least one time that I remember specifically, you know, people are on stage in front of like more people than they've ever been on stage in front of, and they're exercising potentially the biggest decision they'll ever make in their life by asking someone to commit legally the rest of their life together, you know? And I was like, maybe that doesn't need to happen on stage. maybe that's a little heavy to do and like allow somebody to do. So people just do it like at the shows. They'll just like, you'll see the parting of like people, and then you'll be like, oh, I think, because nobody fights at my shows. There's no like brawls. And
No mosh pits?
No mosh pits. Nobody's opening up the pit at the Al Stone show. So it's typically like somebody's about to get engaged, and it's cool, man. It's a really wonderful moment that we all get to share in. And I'm stoked that like, what a monumental decision to be like, dude, buying tickets, buying the Rock, doing it at the Stone show.
Yeah, they choose
like
you.
What? Like, it's so flattering. Well, like me, right? I know how.
Where'd you propose to your wife?
I proposed to my wife at our house in Spokane. Yeah, just me and her. My wife's very much so like doesn't like surprises, not trying to like, she doesn't like people focusing on her. Like our wedding was really hard for her. She's like, I don't like people noticing me and like focusing on me. And so I made it a point, because she was, before we got engaged, she was like, babe, can like, I know you're an entertainer and you're like just big on the show, but can you do me a favor? If you're going to ask me, like, don't do some spectacle, you know, where we're in a helicopter and Ryan Gosling pops out and sings some wedding singer's tune, you know, like just make it just you and me, easy, chill. And so, yeah, just at my house. I did videotape it though for her family.
Yeah,
you know, they're far away.
You got to give them the memory. Save it for yourself.
Right. I've lost the video. I don't know where it's at.
It's lost.
No,
for your
I'm kidding.
video
We have
scrapbook.
it. We have it. It's great.
Listen to Alan Stone's music. It's waiting for you. Mystery, the whole catalog on Amazon Music. Final thoughts?
No, this is great. Very
Hey,
fascinating.
thank you, fellas, so much for this wonderful conversation. It's really, really fun to get to chat with you.
Mutual. You're really special. And as you keep releasing stuff, please come back.
I will.
Yeah, we're always here.
Absolutely.
Alan Stone, everybody.
Thanks, y'all. Dude. Sick.
Thanks.